I want to do something different today. Before we even introduce ourselves, before we say a single word about the topic, I want you, the person listening, to do a small test with me.
A test?
A test. Don't worry, nobody is grading you, but I think when you do this, something will click. Something you've probably suspected about your English for a long time, but never had a name for.
Okay, I'm curious now. What's the test?
I'm going to ask the listener a question in English, a simple one, and I want them to answer it out loud as fast as they can. Just one sentence.
Okay.
Okay, here's the question. Ready? What did you have for breakfast this morning? Now, be honest with yourself. What just happened in your head?
Oh, I see what you did.
Did the answer come to you in English, directly, like a native speaker? Or did your brain, even for a fraction of a second, go to your first language first? Did it find the answer in your own language and then translate it into English?
And here's the painful part. It doesn't matter if you're A2 or C1. Most learners, even very advanced ones, will catch their brain doing this, just for a moment, just for one or two words, but it happens.
And that little moment is what we are talking about today, the translation trap.
The reason your English feels slow even when your vocabulary is huge. The reason you understand everything perfectly but can't respond as fast as you want. The reason you sound fluent in your head but the words come out hesitant.
And here is the good news. There is a specific 3-step mental process to break this habit. It's not about studying more words. It's not about more grammar. It's about how you think, the mechanics of thinking itself.
Welcome to Side by Side English Podcasts. I'm Sophie.
I'm Mark. Today's episode is for the B2 and C1 learner who has done everything right. Built vocabulary, studied grammar, watched countless hours of English content, and still feels like there's a delay between their brain and their mouth. We're going to find out why and what to do about it.
Stay with us. We have the 3-step brain switch, a role play that will show you the exact moment translation kills your fluency, a mistake lab on the 4 sneaky places where translation hides even at C1 level, and a word tour with 6 high-value B2 to C1 words you can start using this week.
Quick question for the comments before we go in. When you tried that breakfast question, did your brain translate? Be honest, just write yes or no in the comments. We're collecting data. We want to see.
All right, let's open this up. So, Mark, let's start with the obvious question. What is translating in your head actually?
Okay, so there are 2 ways the brain can produce a sentence in English. One is fast, direct, and feels effortless. The other is slow, indirect, and feels like work.
And most learners are stuck in the second one.
Most learners are stuck in the second one, at least some of the time. Let me explain the difference.
Please.
When a native English speaker wants to say something, their brain skips a step. There's a thought, a concept, and then there's English. The thought goes directly to English. There is no in-between language.
Concept to English, 1 step.
Concept to English, 1 step. Now compare that to what most learners do, even advanced ones, sometimes without realizing it. There's a thought, then the brain expresses that thought in their first language, then the brain translates that first language sentence into English, then the words come out.
3 steps instead of 1.
3 steps instead of 1. And every extra step costs time, it costs energy, it costs naturalness.
And the result, even if your English is technically correct, is that you sound slightly delayed, slightly stiff, slightly translated.
Because it is translated, literally. You translated it.
And here's what is interesting and what I think a lot of B2 and C1 learners don't realize. You are probably not translating everything anymore.
For simple things like good morning, how are you, I'm tired, those have become direct. They're wired in. You think them in English now.
Right, the simple stuff is fine.
The simple stuff is fine, but the moment the conversation gets more complex, the moment you have to express an opinion, describe a situation, make a nuanced point, the old translation pattern comes back because your brain doesn't have a direct English wiring for those advanced thoughts yet.
And so the brain falls back on what it knows, your first language, and then translates from there.
Which is why advanced learners often feel a strange thing, like their English is great in casual situations but suddenly feels clumsy in a meeting or in an emotional moment or in a discussion with a lot of detail.
Yes, because in those moments, the brain is working harder, the thought is more complex, and the translation process is doing more work and slowing you down more visibly.
Okay, so let's talk about why this happens, because I think understanding the mechanism actually helps people stop blaming themselves.
Yes. So the brain is an efficiency machine. It always takes the path of least resistance. And when you started learning English, the path of least resistance was go through your first language, because your first language was the foundation everything else was built on.
It made sense at the time.
It made complete sense at the time. You didn't have enough English to think directly in English, so your brain built English on top of your native language, like a second floor on top of a first floor.
And every time you wanted to say something, you had to walk down to the first floor, your native language, and then back up.
And after years of doing that, that pattern is deep. It's wired in. It's automatic.
Even when you don't need it anymore. Even when your English has grown enough to think directly, your brain still routes through the old pathway out of habit.
Like an old road you keep taking even though there's a faster highway now.
Exactly that. The new highway exists, but your brain takes the old road because it's familiar.
And the real work of breaking the translation trap is to teach your brain that the highway is open and to start forcing it onto the new road.
Which is what the three-step brain switch is going to do.
Yes, but before we get there, let me ask you something. How does someone know they're translating? Because I think this is actually a hard skill on its own.
Great question. There are very specific signs. Let me list 4.
Okay.
Sign 1, the delay. There's a small pause between someone asking you a question and you answering. Not a thinking pause, a processing pause. Your brain is fetching the answer in one language and converting it.
Sign 2.
Sign 2, direct word-for-word translations that sound a little wrong, like saying I have 25 years instead of I am 25 years old, because in many languages people have their age. Or saying make a photo instead of take a photo, because in some languages you make photos. These tiny errors are translation errors. Your brain is moving the structure of your first language directly into English.
And those are very hard to catch because they sound almost right.
Almost right. They're the kind of mistakes that make English sound translated even when there's no obvious grammar problem. Sign 3, the feeling that you know what you want to say but can't find the words. That feeling almost always is a translation feeling.
Wait, explain that.
When you know what you want to say but can't find the words, what's actually happening is you have a perfect sentence in your first language and you can't find the English equivalent. So the thought feels complete to you, but the English feels missing. That's translation in action.
Oh, that's such a recognizable feeling.
Almost every learner has had it. And here's the thing. If you were thinking directly in English, you wouldn't have that feeling because the thought and the words would arrive together. The frustration of I know what I mean but can't say it, that frustration is the translation gap.
Sign 4?
Sign 4, using overly formal or strange word choices. When you translate, you often pick the first equivalent your brain offers, which is often a textbook word, not a natural one. So you say, I commenced my journey, instead of I started my trip, or I am in possession of, instead of I have. That stiffness, that translated quality, is a fingerprint of the translation trap.
And these are signs that even very advanced learners show.
All the time. C1 learners, people who have lived abroad, people who use English at work every day. The trap is sneaky. It hides in the corners.
Okay, so now we know what it is, we know how to spot it. Let's get to the part everyone is waiting for, the 3-step brain switch.
Let's do it.
Step 1, and this is the foundation everything else is built on. Describe, don't translate.
Tell me what you mean.
When you don't know a word in English, your instinct is to stop, search your first language for the perfect equivalent, and try to translate it. That instinct is what we want to break.
And what should we do instead?
Describe. Use the English you already have to describe around the word. Don't search for the missing word. Build a path around it.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine you're telling a story and you want to use a word that means a person who fixes shoes, but you can't remember the English word, which is cobbler, by the way.
Most people forget that word.
Most people forget that word. So the translation instinct says stop, search your first language, find the word for cobbler in your language, then try to translate it back.
Slow, painful, and often you still don't find it.
Right. The describe instinct says, I went to a man, the man who fixes shoes when they break. Done. The conversation continues, the story moves forward, and you didn't break the flow.
And the listener understood you perfectly.
Perfectly. And here's the thing. Describing is what native speakers do when they can't find a word. They don't freeze, they don't translate, they just describe their way around it.
This is huge, actually. Describing is not a workaround for weak English. Describing is how fluent people speak.
Exactly. So step 1 of the brain switch is make describing your default. The next time you don't know a word, don't stop, don't translate, just describe and keep moving.
Step 2.
Step 2 is think in scenes, not in sentences.
Oh, I love this. Explain.
Okay, so most learners, when they want to say something, they construct a sentence in their head first. They think, I want to say this exact sentence, and then they translate that sentence into English.
That's the trap.
Because the sentence comes from their first language.
Right. So instead, train yourself to think in images, in scenes, in pictures.
What does that mean in practice? Let's say you want to talk about something that happened yesterday. You saw a dog running across the street. Don't construct the sentence in your first language first. Instead, picture the scene. See the dog, see the street, see the running, and then describe what you see directly in English.
Because the picture isn't in any language.
The picture isn't in any language. The picture is just a picture. And from that picture, your brain can describe it in whatever language you want. There's no translation step. You're going straight from image to English.
This is genius, actually, because images live before language.
They do. Images are pre-linguistic. They're older than language. Your brain processes them faster than words. And if you can train yourself to start with the image, not the sentence, you bypass the translation step completely.
And this is something you can practice.
Constantly, every day. Walk down the street and silently describe what you see in English directly from the images in front of you. There's a woman with a red bag. She's waiting for the bus. The bus is late. Don't construct those sentences first in your first language. Look, see, speak.
And this builds the new pathway, the direct one.
It does. Every time you go from image to English without stopping in your first language, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're laying new neural roads, and over time, those roads become the default.
Step 3.
Step 3 is adopt English as your inner voice.
This is the deepest one.
It's the deepest one because most learners think in their first language all the time, when they're walking, when they're cooking, when they're falling asleep. And then they expect to suddenly switch to English when a conversation starts.
Which is impossible.
It's almost impossible because the brain doesn't switch easily. The language you think in between conversations is the language your brain defaults to during conversations.
So you have to start thinking in English even when no one is around.
Yes, and this is uncomfortable at first. It feels strange, it feels forced, but it's the most powerful thing a learner can do.
What does it actually look like?
Tiny things. When you wake up, instead of mentally listing what you have to do today in your first language, list it in English. When you're cooking, narrate what you're doing in English. I'm chopping the onion. The pan is hot. I need salt. When you're walking somewhere, comment on what you see in English.
And nobody has to hear it. It's all in your head.
All in your head, but your brain is practicing the direct pathway all day long.
So when an actual conversation happens, your brain is already warmed up. It's already in English mode.
And the translation step starts to disappear, naturally, because your brain stops needing it.
Exactly. After a few weeks of doing this, and I mean really doing it, not just for 5 minutes, you'll notice something strange. You'll catch yourself thinking in English without realizing it. You'll have a dream in English. You'll do mental math in English without meaning to.
And that is the moment the trap breaks.
That is the moment the trap breaks because you're not switching to English anymore. You're already there.
Okay, let's do a role play, but again, different from a normal one. I'm going to play a learner having a conversation. Sophie, you're going to play the internal voice showing what's actually happening in the brain, so the audience can hear translation in real time.
Oh, I love this. Yes, let's do it. Okay, imagine I'm at a work event and someone asks me, "So, what's been the highlight of your year so far?" Well, my year has been very interesting. I think the highlight was when I made a project at my work that was very successful.
Stop. Listen to what just happened. The brain heard the question, the brain went to the first language and thought, what was the highlight of my year in the first language? The brain then constructed an answer in the first language, and then the brain translated that answer. And you can hear it. The hesitation, the word made instead of led, the phrase very interesting, which is a textbook word, not a natural one. This is the trap in real time.
And now let me do it again. The same question, but this time using the brain switch.
Okay, the same question. What's been the highlight of your year so far?
Honestly, there's this moment back in March. I was leading a project at work. We'd been stuck for weeks, and then in one meeting, everything just clicked. The team got it. The plan came together. That moment, that's been the highlight.
And listen to the difference. No hesitation, specific images, natural rhythm, real phrases. We'd been stuck. Everything just clicked. The team got it. None of these came from translation. They came from a picture, a memory, a scene that I described directly in English.
And the difference to a listener is enormous. The first version sounded translated. The second version sounded real.
And the only thing that changed was how my brain was working. The vocabulary, the grammar, the level of English, all the same. The only thing different was the route from thoughts to English.
Which is the entire point of this episode.
It is. Most learners think they need more English. They don't. Most B2 and C1 learners have plenty of English. They just need a faster, more direct route from thought to mouth.
Okay, let's do a mistake lab. But this isn't about grammar. This is about the 4 sneaky places where translation hides, even when learners think they've stopped translating.
Yes, because learners often think, I don't translate anymore. I'm past that. And in many cases, they still are. They just don't notice it.
Hidden translation spot 1. Idioms and expressions. When learners try to use an idiom from their first language directly translated into English, the result is often something English speakers find confusing or strange.
Right. Every language has its own idioms. Translating them word for word almost never works. The fix is, instead of translating an idiom from your language, learn the English expression for that situation, or just describe the meaning plainly.
Hidden translation spot 2. Emotional language. When learners want to express something emotional, frustration, excitement, sadness, they often default to their first language internally because emotion is wired into your first language at a deep level.
And then they translate the emotional expression, and it sounds either too dramatic or too flat in English. The fix is collect English emotional phrases. Listen to native speakers express emotion. Borrow their language. That drove me up the wall. I was over the moon. It really threw me off. Your emotional vocabulary in English needs to be built directly, not translated.
Hidden translation spot 3. Small connecting words. The tiny bridge words. Actually, anyway, I mean, you know, kind of, sort of. Learners often use direct translations of their first language's connecting words, and they sound slightly off.
And native speakers use these connecting words constantly. They're the rhythm of conversation. The fix is pay attention to which connecting words native speakers use in which situations, and start using those specific ones, not your translated equivalents.
Hidden translation spot 4. Specific cultural concepts. Every language has concepts that don't have a perfect English equivalent. Learners try to translate them directly, and the result is awkward.
The fix is accept that some concepts don't translate and learn to explain the concept rather than translate it. Or find the closest English equivalent and use it, even if it's not perfect. Don't get stuck searching for an exact match.
And the meta lesson here across all 4 is the same.
It is. Translation is a habit, and like all habits, it shows up in places you don't notice. The work isn't to eliminate it perfectly, That may never happen completely. The work is to catch it more often. And every time you catch it, you weaken it.
Word tour?
Word tour.
Ba ba ba. Word tour.
First word, to bypass. To bypass something means to go around it, to avoid it, to skip a step that you would normally have to take. It's a fantastic verb for talking about mental processes and shortcuts.
For example, the whole point of the brain switch is to bypass the translation step entirely and go directly from thought to English. Or, she found a way to bypass the slow process and reach the same result faster. Repeat, bypass.
Bypass.
Next, to rewire. To rewire something means to change the way it is connected, originally an electrical word, but now used widely for the brain. We talk about rewiring your brain when we change a deep mental habit.
For example, practicing English thinking every day is literally rewiring your brain to use a faster, more direct pathway. Or, he had to completely rewire his approach to public speaking before he started feeling comfortable. Repeat, rewire.
Next, a pathway. A pathway is a route, a track, a way through something. In neuroscience and psychology, we talk about neural pathways, the routes information takes through your brain. It's a beautiful metaphor for habits and skills.
For example, every time you think directly in English, you strengthen a new neural pathway and weaken the old translation pathway. Or, there is no single pathway to fluency, but the most direct one is to stop translating in your head. Repeat, pathway.
Next, to default to. To default to something means to automatically fall back on it, to choose it without thinking. It's an extremely useful phrase for talking about habits and automatic behavior.
For example, when learners are nervous or tired, they default to their first language because it requires less mental effort. Or, she defaults to overthinking every email she writes, even short ones. Repeat, default to.
Next, fluent/fluency. Most learners know these words, but few use them precisely. Fluency doesn't mean perfect. Fluency means flow, the smoothness with which language comes out of you. The word literally comes from flow.
For example, fluency is not about knowing more words. It is about reducing the friction between thought and speech. Or, he's not the most accurate speaker in the room, but he is the most fluent, and that often matters more. Repeat, fluent, fluency.
And finally, friction. Friction is resistance, the force that slows things down when they rub against each other. We use it in language learning to describe the mental effort that slows down speech.
For example, translating in your head adds enormous friction to every sentence, and it is the main reason advanced learners feel slow. Or, the goal of practicing daily is to reduce the friction between your thoughts and your English until speaking feels effortless.
Repeat. Friction. 6 words today. Bypass, rewire, pathway, default to, fluency, and friction. And every single one of these words is the kind of word that makes your English sound thoughtful, educated, native feeling.
And bonus, these are exactly the kinds of words you'll hear in psychology podcasts, productivity content, self-development books. They are real, current, useful English.
Mark, if there is one thing you want every person watching to take away from this episode, what is it? That fluency is not a vocabulary problem. It's a processing problem. Most B2 and C1 learners have all the English they need. What they don't have yet is the direct mental pathway, the route from thought to English without stopping in their first language. And that pathway can be built.
It can be built. It just takes practice. Not more grammar, not more vocabulary, practice of thinking.
Which is something you can do anywhere, anytime, without a teacher, without a textbook, without a partner. You just start thinking in English about small things constantly.
Walk down the street and describe what you see. Wake up and plan your day in English. Cook dinner and narrate the steps. Watch a moment happen and describe the picture directly in English.
And every time you do that, you are weakening the old pathway and strengthening the new one. Every single time.
Small challenge before we go. For the next 7 days, every time you wait for something, at a bus stop, in a queue, in an elevator, instead of taking out your phone, look around and describe what you see in English, silently, in your head.
Don't translate. Don't construct sentences in your first language first. Just look, see, Describe.
And after 7 days, come back to this video, drop a comment. Tell us, has anything shifted? Has the gap between thought and English gotten smaller? We want to hear.
Because the work is invisible, but the result, over time, is not.
I'm Sophie.
I'm Mark. Thank you for being here. Thank you for thinking with us.
Practice the brain switch. Trust the process. We'll see you in the next one.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.